Scott Narver. We're doing another What If episode, and today we're talking all about Triple H.
Oh, Jake Lloyd Bacon, I love what ifs. So we're talking what if Triple H didn't leave China for Stephanie McMahon?
No, that's not the what if we're doing.
Oh, what if Triple H thought about water conservation and didn't spit out water all the time during his entrance?
That doesn't even make sense. No, not at all.
Oh, what if someone explained to Triple H what Iron Crosses meant earlier in his career?
Oh, God damn it. What if Triple H didn't have his cardiac event today on Pro Wrestling Palskis? Hey, Scott Narver.
Hey, Jake Lloyd Bacon.
Hey, everybody out there listening. Thanks for tuning in to Pro Wrestling Palskis, and thanks to everybody in the super exclusive patron-only live stream. If you want to watch us record these episodes live and talk directly to us in the chat, well, then you got to become a patron over at patreon.com/PWPalskis. Every single tier of patronage gets you access to the live stream, so you don't got to spend a ton of coin. Just got to throw us a couple bucks for our troubles. I think we deserve it. I think we're cute. We're charming, and doggone it, people like us.
And it's not as many troubles as EC3's TNA theme song, so you're good.
So many troubles in that song.
This is loaded with troubles.
Just a ton of troubles. Today we're doing another What If. It's been a while since we've done one of these.
Yeah, and now we're focusing on saving lives.
We're imagining a different timeline. Listen, multiverses and alternate timelines are all the rage these days.
Are they? I don't think I've seen that anywhere.
And so why not get a piece of that sweet multiverse alternate timeline money? You know what I mean? We're doing this for the money.
How's that not been presented in wrestling yet? How has no one done a multiverse?
Right. I guess it's because, like, how do you do an entire episode of a TV show that's a different timeline? And
or if you're a retired wrestler, is this what Ric Flair does? Goes like, "There's an alternate timeline. I'm still wrestling."
Oh, all right. Well, every timeline is an alternate timeline with him because he can't fucking remember anything.
He's still got his faculties.
Yeah, he does. I joke. He's just really old.
You know what? Some might say he's got his faculties.
Oh boy, because he's a sexual offender. Today we're talking about Triple H and his cardiac episode. It wasn't a heart attack, Scott Narver. I know you want to say heart attack, but it wasn't a heart attack.
I didn't say nothing. And it's a cardiac event.
Oh, I have
sell tickets to it.
I have episodes. You could sell tickets to episodes too, because Raw is the longest running episodic television. I thought his heart was episodic. This is part of it.
Okay.
So when did he have his cardiac episode? Did you find that information? Did you Google
event?
Event?
Why you keep changing it?
Because I don't listen.
And you didn't tell me to look this up beforehand, so.
Gilbert Short says, I think New Japan Pro Wrestling and Impact's crossover show is multiverse related.
Oh.
But we call that what you have a name for that? Otherworld? No, what do you call it?
Elseworlds.
Elseworlds.
That's Saudi.
That's Saudi's Elseworld. Well, Saudi's now no longer Elseworlds, but
why?
It started because main titles change hands there, and they acknowledge everything that happens there, and they shoot it and talk. Yes.
What main titles have changed there?
You gonna make me fucking look it up? I don't remember shit. You ask me questions.
A title was created there, but that's not changing. Seth is the Saudi world champion.
No, I thought that was Mansoor.
No, he's the unemployed champion.
Let's see.
Just making shit up. Main
Brock
titles.
Lesnar, John Morrison, and Miz beat the New Day. Kofi Kingston and Big E for the tag titles.
There's like 7 of those.
Damage Control and Dakota Kai beat Asuka and Bliss for the women's tag titles.
There's also like 7 of those.
Goldberg beat The Fiend for the Universal Championship. The Fiend beat Seth Rollins.
That title doesn't even exist anymore.
For the Universal Championship.
Doesn't exist?
Yes, it does. Brock Lesnar.
Doesn't? It's draped on Heyman. It's not a real title.
Brock Lesnar beat AJ Styles, Austin Theory, Matt Riddle, Seth Rollins, and Bobby Lashley in a Saudi event.
Now you're just saying things that happened.
I'm reading all the things that happened in Saudi event that were title changes, because you said no titles ever changed hands there, and I'm just proving 5 because of this
defunct
article on Sportskeeda.
Defunct titles.
It's not defunct. It's absorbed. There's a difference.
Paul Heyman chews. Don't just say that he absorbs things. That's so unfair.
He's like Kirby. Just the air goes inside.
And then there's always a new little hat on his head.
Jeff Hardy beat Jinder Mahal for the U.S. title, according to Mike Lucas.
No one knows if that's true.
Oh, I forgot to do this. Hey, everybody, it's December, and we must acknowledge speaking of titles changing hands, our current PWP World Champion, Tim Redbeard, a.k.a. Blood Fuzz. It happened on the internet. Current PWP champ for the month of December, Tim Redbeard. Congrats on that. He is, our topic today is Triple H, who's the King of Kings. Tim Redbeard's the King of Decembers. Okay. Tim Redbeard, his 3rd consecutive December PWP championship, and the only month in which he ever wins a PWP championship.
Hey, some people say it's bad to have your birthday and Christmas in the same month. Clearly, Tim Redbeard doesn't feel that way about that idea.
Not at all. Alexandra's birthday is the day after Christmas.
It's nice of you to try and marry her then to make her feel better about life.
We're going to do it the day before Christmas just so that we can get all out of the way every month or every year in the same week.
Why she got shit on Boxing Day like that? Not cool.
Curtis Mason in the chat. Do you think Roman's taking time off to give Heyman a break from carrying his belts? No, I don't, to be honest with you. Not at all. I don't think he gives 2 shits.
I do.
Wait a minute, Mike Lucas. Sorry, Mike Lucas, me and Alexandra have the same birthday then. Mike Lucas's birthday is coming up. Day after Christmas. You would have thought.
Uh-oh. That means that you could also accidentally marry Mike Lucas.
I don't think there's a possibility of that happening, but
yeah, this is post Monocta.
Is that a group from AEW? There's not a shape in the name.
That's more of an NXT name. Come on.
You're right. You're right.
This is when you can marry someone of the same birthday as your former partner or fiance and go, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Respect that.
Triple H's cardiac event took place in September of 2021.
Oh, that's why I misremembered it. So,
because it happened before today.
Yeah, exactly. So where was he in his career in 2021? Is he still heading up NXT? Let's see.
This is just hey, Scott, Google this thing show.
I'm looking it up
Scott,
too.
Google
I'm asking questions to the audience. And listen, we're fucking having a conversation. We just talked for 2 hours about CM Punk last week. It's the quick transition.
There's no fact checking involved.
No, not at all.
He was working at WWE. That's what was happening.
Fantastic. He was wrestling though. He had let's see here. What was his last? I'm trying to think of when that Brothers of Destruction / Crown Jewel in Saudi.
Before that.
Yeah. October 6th and Super Showdown. Was that the one that was in Australia? The last time ever with Taker? Yep. And then afterwards, it was Crown Jewel against Brothers of Destruction. And then the one after that was Batista in 2019.
For Mania. Of
for
retiring,
Mania. It says
taking out nose rings.
It says his final match on a pay-per-view was a loss to Orton at Super Showdown on June 7th in 2019. And then a small house show in Tokyo on the 29th of June in a big tag match. So at that point, by the time he had this event, he was already kind of, he had gone a year without having a match. Now, do you feel like, because you said it was in 2021?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he didn't wrestle an entire match. Oh, what am I talking about? Pandemic. I was like, he didn't wrestle at all in 2020. Yeah, he wouldn't have, because he was like, I'm not wrestling for fucking nobody. What is this, TV screens? Fuck that shit.
Yeah.
So I think we can say with a fair sense of certainty that he still would have at least had a match or two more.
For sure. You don't get the longest entrances at WrestleMania for nothing.
Right.
So he would have for sure had a retirement match, whether he would have wanted to or not, right? Like maybe he's one of those guys like, I don't really want to do that. And whether it was Mania or not, who knows? But the company would have went, no, we're making this a thing. We're going to have this be a spectacle. We're going to sell tickets. You're going to have a send off. We're going to make a guy like you got to retire fucking Cactus once. So it's fine.
Right.
You get to do this. So, he was definitely on call for Manias. There was always a sense of, hey, let's have a big marquee match, because it's the McMahon of it all. Once that was in place of, we can have the boss or the authority figure fighting someone.
Yep.
That's in place.
And it's sort of a story that, despite being, told quite a few times, it's an easy thing to do. It's a very easy story to tell of like, I don't like who this champion is, and he keeps beating all the people that I want to win the title to represent the company. So I'm gonna do it myself. I mean, he did it with Roman when he was like, I don't want Roman to be the champion. Remember? And then he was like, I'm just going to go win it myself in the Rumble.
Yep. To address Gilbert Schwartz.
Oh, what did he say?
Asking about Triple H's last match. According to CageMatch.net, Shinsuke Nakamura and Triple H defeat Robert Roode and Samoa Joe at that house show that Jake mentioned in Tokyo, Japan, June 29th, 2019. That was his last matchup.
It's crazy to think that Shinsuke Nakamura, Robert Roode, and Samoa Joe were the last three people to share a ring with Triple H. That's a weird.
I would think that's for Jeff Jarrett.
You would think that's for Triple H. Oh, right. Yes. Sure.
Because you got a couple of TNA guys in there.
Yeah. But yeah, so he was a little bit of, he was Taker and Vince McMahon combined into one.
Yeah. He's a featured attraction.
Yes.
He's going to need time to train and get into ring shape. He's doing a lot of other shit, but those were those are significant paydays.
Right.
The wife gets involved usually.
Right.
He gets to, put on some crowns and shit and whatever.
Put on some crowns and shit. He retires in March. He announces his retirement, even though he hadn't wrestled in a while. And then a week later, he's named the COO of WWE. Do we feel that the two things are actually like cause and effect, or was he going to be the CEO regardless of whether or not he was going to be active?
COO or CEO?
COO. Chief Operating Officer was the title that was given to him on the second night of WrestleMania 38.
First night? No. You're just a wrestler that can't wrestle no more, you piece of shit. Second night? You done good, kid.
It wasn't until the end of that year in 2022 that he was promoted to Chief Content Officer from Chief Operating Officer, whatever the fuck these goddamn titles mean.
Yeah, because in title on television, he was the COO before that.
Right. Yes.
Just be weird for any people like shareholders or, Snickers brand people or something meeting him. It's like, you're the COO. Like, no, not really. Maybe the second night of WrestleMania I will be,
Right.
but not right now. So,
yeah.
yes, I think there was inevitable corporate titles to be given to him.
Right. And that was going to be regardless of whether or not he had a problem with his heart and he was retired anyway. It was going to just be the case. He was going to have a contract for his on-screen talent, and then he was going to have his corporate work.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Now, does him wrestling change? Because obviously we'll get to like, oh, it would be really great if right now he could have a match against Cody over hitting that goddamn chair in AEW, and him now that Punk is back, like, oh my God, that would have been a pre-written match. You'd have it already set in stone. But before right now in time, like I'm trying to think of the people over the past 2 years, or I mean, arguably 3 years, really, right? That has been wrestling. People who've come and gone, whose stories might have been affected by potentially Triple H being like, well, at this point in time, I'm going to get in the ring now. And
there's money to be made here.
Yes. I mean, Brock comes back, Goldberg comes back again, and then
fucking Brock is played out with him. Yeah. Those two, they did not have good chemistry. No. They did way too many matches. Yeah. That's one where I just personally, if you don't go, no.
I guess the point that I was attempting to make was not him versus Brock, but like in the positions that these guys came back, it being Triple H instead. Triple H versus The Fiend instead of fucking Goldberg. Those sorts of moments. Like, do we think that we would have seen more of Triple H in those roles versus the company pulling back these other names? Or do we think it would have been in addition to?
In addition to.
Oh, okay.
100%. Like they're going to, as they've been doing, as is the way, and this is not a knock. They've been pulling names of old,
right,
for as long as they can and as long as they will.
Right.
CM Punk is the latest.
Yep.
And they're going to run out, and then they're going to really have to hunker down and go, we're going to really make some new fucking people.
Right. 100%.
Because Roman is a different breed of what this could be. I don't think it's going to work out that way with Roman in the long haul. I think Roman is one of those guys that having 2 battles of leukemia and being the guy that's going like, I'm going overtime on you for you guys now, and I'm going to have to take a big break, and who knows how much longer you really get Roman. I don't think he's going to be one that's going to just keep showing up. I don't think he's going to be a guy that goes over to AEW.
Well, I
think he's a guy that's going to
sorry to interrupt, but we touched base a little bit on this last week when we were talking about, when I posed the question of like AEW guys who are more likely to return to WWE to end their careers in some way. And I think what's really interesting about the modern era, and I know Punk is still fairly young and whatnot, but like we view personal health, both physical and mental, so much differently in society now than wrestlers did 20 years ago. And it's really hard to imagine the modern day headliners that were made within the past 10 years, right? 10, 15 years, being the names, being the Goldbergs, the Brocks, the Takers, Sting, the Flairs, the, Triple H and Shawn. Like, it's just really hard to imagine them still coming back when they're old for that one more match. Because I just think that, like, we're positioning ourselves as a generation and as employees so much better nowadays. Even just like having the wellness policy in effect, like it just seems to be so different that like the whole like, oh, the big names are going to run out. Yes, that's true because it doesn't feel like those big names are being made right now. But simultaneously, it's also just like, I don't think they're going to have a need to come back or a desire to come back. Because it's like you said about Bryan.
Roman.
Yeah. You think Roman's the only one?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I'm thinking about like you talked about
wrestling,
like Daniel Bryan last week, where it's like, yeah,
Vern Gagne.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
The fucking guy went forever and like, I own this place, and I'm still going. Jeff Jarrett's still going. Like all these people these are that's
what I'm getting at. They're all from that era though, where I just think that like
not all of them, because some of these guys that you mentioned Flair and Sting, they were from the era before that era.
Yes, that's I mean everything before. I pretty much mean like Attitude Era, maybe beginning of PG era and back. Like, I think.
But that's multiple eras.
I know, but that is everything pre-modern is what I'm trying to get at. Yes, everybody from the before times, but when people just didn't care as much about their personal well-being.
But it's still just, there was no other job. There were no ambassador roles. There were no other things. It's like you're working in a fucking meat market or something like that. You just keep going back. I mean, I think, and it's also from a performance standpoint, don't you want to just keep doing it for fucking ever? As long as your body can hold up, as you had mentioned on last week's show, Undertaker sitting down to Ariel Helwani and Taker's going, I'm putting the judgments of other people on me.
Right. Sure.
And saying, I don't think I can give them what they want, when
I feel good.
There are others that are fully aware, wrestlers, and go, I know I can give them enough.
Right.
To be happy, and they can pay the money and then get the Polaroid, and then I'll send the picture and I got a payday. That is all good.
Right.
I don't think Sid Vicious is holding himself to the fans like, I don't know if I can really give them what they want. I can't powerbomb a motherfucker, but I can chokeslam him.
Right. Sure. Yeah. And obviously there's there's tiers to that as well, as far as like
many tiers on the road, in the planes, in the hotel rooms late at night, and just going, my gear doesn't fit properly.
I don't get it. But any case, back to Triple H.
Triple H would still be a featured attraction for 100%. Sure. Other matches that were not mentioned, like he had fought Cena,
right,
in his last bit of run. Like he had the mixed tag match with him and his wife Rousey versus Kurt Angle and Rousey,
right,
setting someone up. Right. So I think that was majorly key, and I think we can go into some timeline stuff here a little bit. But the first person I could think of where Triple H is being very selective about his opponents and what's going to draw money, what's going to be big, and you probably know this better than I do because I just don't care as much. Edge would have been one of them.
Right.
Probably an overseas show.
Yeah.
Because that sells big, and it's a
remnant.
Hey, I know I can work with Edge.
Yeah, it's a remnant
it's
show.
Not, we can do something really great. And everybody's not going to want to miss it because it's probably going to be another like Taker. It's like, this is the last one.
Last time ever, yeah.
And maybe they go like, we got some here. We'll do like 2 or 3. But him and Edge for sure would have been something to solidify Edge even more of the comeback. I can fight Triple H and do a thing, and it's big. That for sure would have been on Edge's trajectory.
Yeah.
Of Triple H being in the mix.
Absolutely.
Had there not been a pandemic.
I also wonder whether or not, if Triple H was still in it, if he would be protecting the character and laying down
of Edge.
No, of Triple H, and like laying down for young guys, because he's NXT dad, right, for so many years, even before retirement, and you gotta wonder if he had more in him, if there wouldn't be guys coming back, coming up rather from NXT. Like, you know how much he loves his like Tommaso Ciampa, or when Adam Cole came to the main roster.
Yeah, but he didn't lay down for any of these motherfuckers.
I know. Well, yeah, but that was when they were in NXT. I guess the question is once they come up to the main roster and he's got some agency and he knows he's got more matches in him, if he goes like, yeah, I can take an L to a Finn Balor.
Take L's ever.
That's the question I was asking. So I guess that's your answer then. No. So you don't think he'd be doing business for the young guys?
No, because he would have
protecting the character
in the way that Triple H does it. And I appreciate this mentality to a degree when it's not someone who's like my favorite all-time wrestler. He will save it for one person.
Right.
He will make it what the Roman Reigns title is now for the perception of it. Like Triple H will go, if he's fighting all the NXT roster throughout time that are making it up to the main roster, and it is this story of like who could take him down, one person will, whether it's Ciampa or whoever. It's not Gargano. It's one person. It's not 5 of them.
Right.
because he will make that one person more significant.
Yes, 100%.
And in the context too, like he'll make the other challengers step up.
Well, they're in there with
and it's
the
like,
game. Yeah, right.
It wasn't their night. They weren't ready for him yet.
Right.
Like, but the opportunity is lost. They'll never get to fight him again.
Right.
But that one person that does, then the others can celebrate, and all have the camaraderie and the growing. Like he'll have that big picture idea.
Right.
And I think that is a very likely thing, that if they were to build something, that's not necessarily his retirement, but if that is something they could have done where they go, hey, over the year, can we do this?
Right.
Do you have like 4 or 5 matches in you? And we build up to like one person taking you out?
Right. And it really could be just like the tour of the new guard, like young guys, where it's like they're all stepping up to try to prove that they're better than their peer of the young guys. You know, like Adam Cole stepped up to be like, oh, I can do what Finn couldn't, or Gargano or whatever, or Ciampa being like, oh, I can do what Adam Cole didn't. And then eventually there is that one guy who comes through, and it's like, you know, a fucking Damian Priest or whoever they feel like is good enough and they want to put equity in, who comes by and beats them for sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely I agree with your point there. I do think he'd be having matches with those guys if he was still like, they wouldn't be common. I'm not saying every single pay-per-view would be like, oh, him versus another guy, but
because a lot of these, as we see in the match listing, it's like these were house show events. These were specialty tag matches, and he can just come in for a little bit,
get a hot tag, hit a pedigree, go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gilbert Short asked a very interesting question here in the chat. I saw that. Do you think Ric Flair's final match would have been in WWE if Triple H were able to wrestle?
Well, first thing I want to acknowledge, I appreciate you putting in quotes, the quote, Ric Flair's final match. I like that. We're saying like this is quote Ric Flair's final match. Yeah.
So secondary point after that.
Yeah. The fact that Hunter's last match was before Ric Flair's last match is fucked up. That is a good point. But I'm curious, is in the insinuation here, Gilbert, that if Triple H was able to wrestle, that it would be Triple H, that Rick would have wrestled him, and that would have been their last match? Was that what he's insinuating? Is that the subtext here?
Well, that we're eliminating or ignoring Conrad Thompson and all this.
Well, yeah, because he might have not, Flair might have not wanted to wrestle outside of WWE if the option of wrestling Triple H was there. Is that the question I'm asking? Is that what he's posing to us?
Right.
There's a bit
because the factor around Triple H's Ric Flair's last match is Conrad Thompson, son-in-law,
right,
books a show,
right,
sets up the whole thing, and is able to coordinate the whole thing and do have a big fuck payday and do this, that, and the other.
Right.
I can't imagine the entity of WWE saying, okay, we'll do another last match with you in WWE after the Shawn Michaels one you had with Triple H. Because why would they?
Right.
We did this, and what's at stake now? You're going to fight the other guy that was in your group and everything, and now you're way older, and I think they would have had plenty of worries and been like, no, I don't think we want to put this on.
Right. I was curious, actually, because we mentioned this, I think, in the last episode about Ric Flair's retirement matches when I said how many. And so I was like, why don't I just fucking look this up? And I found an article that says that pro wrestling legend Ric Flair wrestled his final match for the 3rd time. Apparently, his first one was Shawn Michaels at Mania. And then he wrestled a second retirement match against Sting on Impact Wrestling in 2011. That he said was his final match.
Oh.
And now this was his 3rd, was in the Conrad Thompson event, which I don't know what this company, if there was a name for it, if it was just the Ric Flair show.
Yeah, it's just that there is no company.
There's no brand that it was under, right?
Conrad Thompson just put together.
But yeah, show. I could see. I mean, I could see like the match, the TNA match, and whenever that happened, like it's unaffected by the conversation, the what if we're having with Triple H, because Triple H was still around and knocking about, right? So I think the question really is everything would kind of be exactly the same, except when Conrad said, hey, Pops, I have this idea. You want to come wrestle your last match? The question then is, does Triple H get wind of it and go, no, you're not fucking doing that. If you're going to wrestle one more fucking time, come do it here at the real company with me. I think that is the only alternate version of this, because everything else would have played out the exact same.
But Triple H doesn't have the clout to make that happen.
He doesn't, but he might have at least had the clout to get to plant the seed of it.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
No, because it's Conrad Thompson and Flair are going to make this happen. And I think what Gilbert's saying here, as he clarifies, I think he would have chosen Hunter over Jay Lethal. That can they get Hunter to show up for this match,
right,
and be involved in this match at the Conrad Thompson's Ric Flair's last match show,
right?
And I think that is also a no from up above.
No, yeah, that's a
and
no.
As much Triple H might be sitting there ringside and maybe does a punch or something and gets involved and it's a little crazy and something being shown on network and Peacock and all that. But I don't believe all parties were getting along at that point with Conrad Thompson and doing his podcast on me. No, it's not. It's still Peacock and the network. Like they had a falling out.
Yeah. Right.
So not that bridge was burned, but it wasn't going to happen. Right. So I don't think everybody was playing nice already.
Right.
But I'm sure Triple H would have I'm sure he would have been rather had over fucking Jarrett.
But here's the other question. How close is the relationship between Flair and HBK since him not honoring his retirement at Mania? Does Triple H go like, hey, I'm friends with Shawn, I'm not wrestling you. Like you were supposed to be retired. Shawn was supposed to retire you. I'm not going to do that to Shawn. Do you know, like, is there any, or is that all just kayfabe bullshit that we're buying into and nobody ever believed that Flair was actually going to fucking leave in that instance?
Well, because then Shawn came out of retirement and then fought again.
I put an asterisk next to that one because it was with the same people. It was with Taker again. Whereas they
weren't the same people.
Okay, good point. But you know what I'm trying to insinuate. Like, I think that it's a little bit different than being like, hey, do you want to come and do it again with us? And we're going to bring in Triple H. We're going to bring in Kane. It'll be more of the thing, but it's not just like, hey, you're going to come out of retirement and fucking wrestle, The Fiend or some shit like that, or somebody else, or Seth or whatever. Yeah.
I think there's also the factor of Ric Flair talks so much shit about Nick Khan. After being released from WWE and being removed from the opening intro.
Oh, interesting.
And Triple H is like, well, this is kind of the financial boss of this whole fucking thing and trying to make us more rich.
Right.
And now you want me to go to your show to do a final match for you. And it's like, dude, do you have any idea how politically fucking messy this
right,
is?
Yeah,
like,
this is a bad look. This is just bad business, it seems. Yeah.
So I feel like Triple H is probably going to be, it's still being able to be an active wrestler, would have been like, hey man, if you want to do one last thing, like go ahead. We did the last thing here. I would love to be there and be a part of it. I'll watch it. I'll order it. I'll do whatever. If I can show up ringside and do a little thing, like cool, but I can't get in the ring there. I can't do that there. It doesn't work in any end. And I can't have you in here either. Like none of this works at that year. Like, no.
I just really quickly want to acknowledge the chat. Curtis says, my intro to Flair was his Evolution run, and he felt old already at that time. And then Gilbert follows up and says, I took a friend who wasn't a regular watcher of wrestling to a Raw show when he was tag champions with Batista. And my friend was like, I'm rooting for Ric Flair because he's still alive. And that was 20 years ago.
I mean, that's like punking everybody now.
Right. No.
It's like that old Flair.
Right. But you know what the thing is, that Flair looked old. Like, he's from yesteryear. Like, he was real beat up. Like, he looked older, younger.
If you look up Evolution Flair,
right,
and you think of Flair now, you go like, holy fuck, that Flair was looking good.
Right. You're not wrong. I mean, it's no different than even looking at, fucking, I don't know, who's old right now? Fucking Triple H. We're talking about him. Like, he still looks like, he looks like he could fuck you up. Like,
take that shirt off.
Oh, you talking about me? Okay, if you want me to, I have a
Take
special.
that
I have
shirt
a
off,
special
Triple
shirt.
H, and you'll see a real cardiac event.
I have a special shirt on underneath this shirt if you really want me to take it off. But that's just for you. There you go. A little old school right there. How about that, kids?
No,
Yeah, buddy.
rump dust.
All right. Well, is there, before we get out, because I definitely want to talk about what's happening right now in wrestling, and I want to acknowledge something that somebody wrote in the Discord as well. But before we do that, if Punk's still wrestling right now, is there anybody on the main roster who may have been better off by a potential
cardiac event?
Yes, who should have had the cardiac arrest.
What?
Would have been better off because of a feud with somebody like Triple H they didn't get out of maybe an Orton or a Edge. A name that comes to mind right now with me, which I just feel like he's sort of like, we don't know what to do with him, was McIntyre. I feel like a McIntyre Triple H feud could have been better for McIntyre than the McIntyre Orton feud was, or like or that similar.
Oh, I would have said that McIntyre and Triple H would have been after Orton. Like, I don't think it's in replacement of.
Okay.
I think it's.
You're not wrong. I like that.
It's the leveling up. It's
right.
It's okay. Now you're getting to the final boss.
Right.
Because again, all these that we've had for many years at a Mania or something else is like you're fighting the boss. You're fighting the authority figure.
Right.
Because titles were had and then they were lost and you're screwed over by this guy and the company's trying to hold you down. So now you fight the fucking company. And then once you have that, that's its own little title or accolade to stamp on it. And Drew McIntyre versus a Triple H would have been incredibly significant for Drew McIntyre because of the back and forth on the mic, in ring, would have been huge and would have helped. I think what Drew needed was a solidifying.
I agree. And I think the thing with Randy went on a little bit too long. So it would have been nice to, cut that and then move on in a way that was more significant.
I think it would have also another one that would have changed the trajectory of everything you alluded to earlier was Cody. And Cody Rhodes, had he come in, we would have fought Seth, I think first thing. Right. And then it's quickly on to your SummerSlam path is probably.
I was going to get there,
it's
but
not Brock. It's Triple H. And then, then you're doing the double duty again. You're doing Triple H and Stephanie McMahon versus Cody and Brandy.
Right.
I think you have to, because there's enough people that know there's some money there. Like Stephanie and Brandy can make it work. Like clearly Triple H and Party can put together a thing, much like how Ronda was protected in her opening matches. Like, do it again.
Right.
It's an easier night for everybody.
Yeah.
And you're introducing the character and go, we can call you when we need you, Brandy. And it's all about Cody, but we'll have a fun night where we do this.
Right. In that instance, does the crowd split? Because Cody's such a baby face. He's like the biggest. I mean, like the guy's just like so beloved by everybody. Does putting him up against the maybe WWE diehards who didn't like that he was taking pot shots at Triple H and doing the chair stuff in AEW, does that split the audience? And is there anybody out there who wants to see Triple H put this kid in his place? Or do we all just go like, no, we get what this is. Like,
I think a few until you go to the building and you're there and you go, oh, yeah, no,
Cody needs to get
fucking
over.
Cody,
fucking
take that old man down.
Yeah.
Because Triple H would have done a good job of making sure he feels he is the authority role.
Right. What?
And why do you think you come back here? Like, because you were part of a legacy. You're not part of an evolution. Your legacy is over. You know, fucking doing those things. And
I also like the idea of like the Titantron before he comes out being like, like people like rebuilding the throne, and it just being like, stronger than ever. Like you can't destroy it. It's eternal or whatever, like dumb bit he would do with that. Cause they would have to use the throne in some way. Like it was too symbolic. Sure. They would have to use it.
They'd have to recreate it also because they're not going to show AEW footage.
Right. Nope. Oh, yeah.
Necessarily going to talk about it. It's like, just do it again here.
100%. And so I think that's why I think like that I think the two big ones are that and then that and now Punk. And I was saving those, but since you dove into it, I think that.
And I think you do the same thing again because if we're finding out that AJ's okay, you do Triple H and Stephanie versus, but we're in a spot now where Stephanie's gone now forever.
But this brings me to this point is if in this alternate timeline where he does that with Cody comes back and we get all that. Does doing it again with Punk diminish the story for Punk? Because the reality, I think of Punk and Hunter as being more legitimate and more like, oh, this is like, we've had on-screen beef between the two of them previously. We've had kayfabe stories that there's already a history there.
You talked about me Cody, on a podcast to some guy.
But with Cody, it's more... Well, it's the business of wrestling, and we're more interested in like the smark of it all.
Cody's was from what he's talked about anyway, from his side. Triple H may have mentioned it in the Cody documentary, but it's hey, we were cool with each other and everything was fine.
Right.
And I think he even checked in with him about like, I wanted to do this thing. And Triple H was like, yeah, fucking go for it.
Right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
People will perceive something and great. Like you got something going for you. I'm okay. I'm doing my thing.
Right.
So they were cool. That's fine. And Triple H's and Punk's thing was a little bit more real. And the only match that they had was during this whole Kevin Nash bringing back job debacle. And he's not in good shape. Laurinaitis is around and they have one fucking match and Triple H wins.
Yeah.
And that very much felt like, this was totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
This guy was already a part-timer. And why did he fucking win this? No rematch. Never again. This is unfinished business.
This was skinny fat, the match versus just the comment. Like the skinny fat comment was one thing, but this was like that in wrestling match form of like, really? You're going to do that to this guy? like there's cutting down an opponent on camera, kayfabe, and then there's like, oh, that's just bad business.
There's now the feel of, Cody could be like, what are you doing back here?
Right.
Triple H versus Cody is, what are you doing back here?
Oh, you crawling back.
Want you here.
Oh, look who's cream crawling home. Yeah.
And we're gonna get you out of here. And Punk could be the reverse. Punk could be, I came back to take you out.
Yes, 100%.
I warned everyone years ago that you're going to be taken over. And now that you're taken over, I'm taking you out.
Yeah. I'm a prophet. Look at everything that I said that came true.
Yeah. So that you can flip it where it's just the other side of the coin, but you go, this feels totally fresh and fucking different.
Yeah. I think that if Triple H was still active, I think the Cody match would have been exceptional. It also would have made for a better interim than having him go up against Roman and lose for the first time. Even though again it wasn't clean and it was all that stuff. Like and I get we're still in that story, so we shouldn't judge it because it's still unfolding. But I can still feel in the moment significantly let down. And I think that would have been, even if it was a loss against Triple H, which I think it would have been a victory in this instance.
And who knows the timeline of, can you imagine if he was fighting Triple H at Hell in the Cell? If Cody with the torn pec fought Triple H at the Hell in the Cell, that'd have been very different.
Yeah.
That'd have been.
The visual would have just been incredible too with Triple H and fucking Sledgehammer.
Yeah, and that would have been crazy because that's a stamp of approval from Triple H. Like I've wrestled two ends of matches with torn quads.
Right.
And that was hell.
You're doing it with a torn pectoral.
A full fucking match with me.
Ugh. Yeah.
And then to get the book later and to do that. So it's just like, oh, I'm riding with this kid all the way because he will do that.
Right.
We can't stop him.
Right.
I want this as my guy. I want this as my employee. So he's got his Romans. He's got his people that he knows ride or die.
And I feel like Triple H, I think does the job for Cody. Right. But now a year later, however long it's been, Punk does indeed come back through whatever means. And I think Punk loses. I think Triple H is the house, and it's not clean. It's not fair. But somehow Triple H is not going to let Punk come back into his company as the ultimate guy who took over and let him get a victory. And it's this thing that drives Punk. It could be for the rest of his fucking career. Now, that doesn't mean that they never wrestle again and he never gets a victory, but I do think that it's a much better. If Punk just comes back and beats Triple H, and it's not Triple H's retirement match, and it's not the one that sends him home forever, then it doesn't really do him a ton of good just winning and then going on to, like, that is such final boss shit for Punk, in my opinion, that it's better if he comes back and Triple H beats him because somebody gets involved, a ref, is in his pocket or something. They screw him. Punk gets screwed, and Triple H goes, yeah, I'm the game. Like, I took over, and guess what? I run this shit. Welcome back to WWE. Yeah. I'm really in charge.
Just ask your buddy Sting how it went.
Right. And Gilbert says it well. Punk needs a chip on his shoulder, and that's a chip. That's like for the rest of his fucking career in WWE. It's all about this fucking guy, and it could drive everything he does in a way that I think could be really good. That would be my fantasy booking for these two back to back. I do want to acknowledge the chat before pre our alternate timeline of Cody coming back. There's a lot of names that were thrown out here that I thought were good. Triple H versus Finn, Mike Lucas said, which is pretty interesting because Finn was he was the first Universal Champion. And that was around the time that the Authority was in effect, if I'm not mistaken, as a on-screen faction, because or it might have been just after that, where
No, they were around before that.
Oh, I know they were around before then. But I'm saying, I think they were still lingering because it wasn't Triple H who sort of picked KO to win it. Remember, in that big multi-man match? So maybe the Authority as a unit wasn't being called that, but Triple H was still an on-screen Authority who was controlling things. So Finn would be interesting, especially if it was post-injury when he came back, because it would also help him because Finn kind of came back to a wet fart in a lot of ways. And I think
Finn is a wet fart.
Okay. Triple H versus KO, says Gilbert Short. I think, I don't know. I don't think that would have done a lot for KO. I think KO is fine without that. And especially being the guy that they picked.
He got to beat up Vince.
I don't know what more. You get to headbutt Vince McMahon to the point of blood.
Frog splash him.
And what? Oh, that's right. I mean, yeah.
I was there for that. I was in Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Triple H versus Sammy. I don't know about that one as well. I don't know if that one helps Sammy a ton personally.
That would have been in the window,
right?
If they could have made that happen,
right?
That could have been in replacement of him fighting for the title,
right? I see what you're saying.
And then he fights for the tag team titles,
right?
That would have been that window, but I feel like there's not a whole lot of opportunity for Sammy versus him. And when you're picking and choosing, Sammy's probably on the lower end of the list.
And it would have been. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think a thing that would have happened in the NXT talk that we had, if the cardiac event didn't happen for Triple H, I think we would have seen Triple H at one point, either NXT TV or a takeover or whatever the fuck those things are called now, but he would have wrestled on an episode of NXT.
Right.
Once.
Right.
A one-time thing as hey, this NXT 2.0 thing is shit, or
get people to watch
this is all going crazy. Like, we need a ratings boost. We need something, like, as they're bringing guys back now, like that is kind of the move. But I think they would have done something. There could have been enough people talking him into, look, man, I think this would just be really big. This could be a really big TV event. That if we build something up between you and somebody, you got to wrestle on this fucking show.
It would have been Braun Breaker. They would have been like, yeah, we need to make him. I will say about Sammy, though, so much of his rise in popularity in recent years is tied to the bloodline. And I don't think Triple H fits in anywhere in that. I think the reality is before the big turn, when he would have had a moment for Triple H would have been when he was doing the conspiracy theory shit.
Yeah.
Because then you again have it's fucking Triple H is controlling all of this. That's when it would have been, because he was gaining a lot of popularity during that. And he's doing great work. It was super fucking funny. Him bringing his documentary crew with him and him altering footage to make it seem like shit wasn't there. Like, that could have went from comedy to, no, you guys aren't taking me seriously. There's some legit
Triple
shit
H,
happening.
good guy.
And you could have had,
destroys him.
Yep.
And then Sammy's still like, yeah, well,
right.
it's still happening.
100%. Yeah. That could have been the story where you would have kind of told the story that they did with essentially Daniel Bryan, except he's wrong. Daniel Bryan is right. And they're trying to hold him back. And he gets to finally beat Triple H after they put every roadblock in his way, not on Roadblock, unfortunately, but at WrestleMania. They put all of the WrestleMania blocks in his way, and he still does it. And we go, yeah, great. In this instance, it's like, Sammy, no, there actually isn't. And you are going to pick a fight that you're going to fucking regret picking.
You went too far.
Yeah. Like that's where I would have put that in the Sammy timeline.
That is excellent placement for that.
Triple H versus Ciampa. I talked a little bit about that earlier. I do think that would have been one, but I don't know where it would have been. I don't know. It would have been good for Ciampa, but I don't know. It would have had to come at a thing. It would have been such an alternate timeline that we couldn't predict any of it because it's a completely different scenario.
And that's a tough one too, because of the trajectory of Ciampa and the company not being
right.
Not seeing Ciampa in the way that Triple H has seen.
You want to know what it would have been? It would have been Ciampa as one of his guys. I could have seen Triple H getting a new authority with all of these NXT kids that are his little babies, boys and girls, right? And then one of them turning on him, and it could have been Ciampa, who's like, you know what, I'm sick of fucking listening to you. I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. That would have been his spot. I would have placed him, given Triple H a little stable of his guys who were like doing his business. Like, then you're just retelling the Shield. I don't know. There's a lot of retelling. What did he say?
Doing his business.
Yeah.
Like cleaning his tush.
Yeah.
His baby boys cleaning his tush.
Yeah, you gotta give him a little wipey. And then the last, Triple H versus Nia. He wants her back so bad he can wrestle her.
So then let's I think flash forward, because we certainly got a lot of people, because I think there are a lot of candidates of people that he could fight, and you have your house show tag matches and stuff, but it probably could have been close to now. Maybe a year or two from now, but
his retirement,
his
not having to be forced to retire, pre-retirement, his actual, like, I'm deciding to retire,
his actual, company and him coming together and going, who's going to retire you? And in this scenario, this is a caveat I'm going to put on it. Like, no more your fucking friends.
Yeah, I agree.
No more your friends. No, it's not Shawn comes back. It's not Taker. It's not Kane. It's not these era guys. We're going back to somebody that's significant, or that will be very significant, but we're making somebody.
It's good. People will hate it, but I could see it happening, and I could see it being part of the legacy. Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns, and at this point in time, the retirement hasn't occurred. Like that whole, like, I took someone's career is a part of his story that we haven't heard yet. I think, and I mentioned earlier, I wanted to comment on something somebody wrote in the Discord. I forgot to do it. Johan Pena in the Discord wrote, because we, whenever we are going to go live, we post in the Discord, and he wrote, I can't be part of the Patreon live today, but I can tell you if he was still active, Triple H, it would be him and CM Punk right now. And I think Punk is another, like, that retirement match. The story, again, is too good. The history is too good. And if that's what I said earlier about Punk coming back to WWE and then immediately losing to him, a couple years from now, that story circles back and Punk finally gets what he wants, to the point where he literally retires the guy. Like, that is just good TV. Is it going to do a ton for Punk? Maybe not, but maybe it does, because maybe it sets up Punk as what Triple H became for the past 5 years. It sets him up as a new torchbearer. You got to get through me, best in the world kind of thing, And then you have a couple of people in my mind that are kind of further down that thing where, if you want to make some big stars, we talk about them all the time. Fucking Gunther. Somebody like a Gunther, who's like, you really want to build a star tomorrow. The thing about Gunther that always leaves an asterisk for me, though, is that interview that sticks in my head. And I'm sure it's like, we'll see what happens. But Gunther specifically said, like, I don't plan on wrestling a long time. He was like,
he says that a lot.
Yeah. And that does, I don't not believe him. So that's why it's always in the back of my head of, like, don't put too much equity in this fucking guy. He's out of here. But also,
but then he's got to do the favor on the way out.
Exactly. That's true.
You build a god and then have a god killer.
Right. Yeah. Other than that, I do feel like Seth, there's a history there. I don't think it's going to do anything for him, but I could see them doing that because of the authority story where it's like, hey, I was your guy and I'm going to be the one, you made me essentially, like Triple H, you made me, I'm going to end you because I'm a dick. And it would be, he would be a heel in this instance.
That's why? Jesus.
And then do you want to know the other really unfortunate one that they would go? Fucking Logan Paul. They'd be like, yeah, we're going to have Logan Paul retire him.
0% chance Triple H would do it. He'd lose to Bad Bunny sooner.
Oh, no, it's going to be Bad Bunny.
He's like, my kids like him.
He was
my
on SNL. Cool. He was on SNL. I saw it. It was pretty funny.
I was on that show.
I didn't understand any word anything he said, but it was pretty good. Who do you got? Who do you think?
Saturday Night Live stands for SNL. But you didn't know that.
You didn't know. A lot of people know that. It's like Triple H.
Triple H.
SNL.
We like it that way.
I like. They call me Triple H, but that's not. It's just actually 3 H's.
Triple H stands for.
I thought I asked Vince. I said, "What does NXT stand for?" And he's like, "I don't know. It kind of looks like the word next." So I always assumed SNL stood for snail.
That's right. Alice Raider says, "What if they did some BS and had Triple H versus Austin Theory because Austin was Vince's boy?" You could certainly see that of like, right. Hey, you got to sneak this one in because we invested a lot in him. So
yeah, I think Austin Theory. I think that return on investment is just not working out. I get it, but
yeah, there's something there. It's just not there yet. They tried too soon.
Or honestly, I mentioned it earlier. Like McIntyre was one of the only guys to be introduced in his debut by Vince McMahon. So even though it's only a kayfabe, he's the next guy. That story is there with McIntyre as well.
The guy that immediately came to mind for me was LA Knight.
Yes. Fuck. I think that's great. Great.
As the guy to retire him. I think you even do a little bit of Austin-esque shit where LA Knight's maybe not getting the rematches. He fought Roman for the title because we're kind of putting it in this timeline right now of like Triple H is winding down. I fought him over in Saudi and, I didn't, but I could beat him this time. And it's like, back of the line. What'd you say to me? Back of the line. And not taking to that. And then maybe getting some opportunities and something happens, something screwy, and he's getting screwed over again. And Triple H is like, that's how it goes. That's how it goes around here. And he's like, you think LA Knight's going to just fucking turn on him and go ballistic? But then he goes like, you know what? I don't appreciate what you do. You've been around here a long time, and I'm thinking everybody else is an idiot, and I don't like the system, but I want to be part of the system. And then he tries to work his way into being an authority figure and doing all this stuff, but then ultimately like tears it all up, like tears it all down, and says it's all garbage. And I hate authority figures. I've never liked people like you wearing a tie every day. And just pulling in the catchphrases like, do you want to wear a tie every day? Or do you want to look like some kind of dummy? Yeah. Everybody calling Triple H a dummy and just that shit that irritates him.
Right. Yeah. It gets under his skin because he doesn't like being not cool. He likes being cool.
That Joe Pesci making up swearing in Home Alone that he does of like the frick. So all that stuff of then saying like, then I'm going to take you out. I'm going to retire you. And if it's WrestleMania, it's WrestleMania because it's Triple H.
Right.
You get it. But have Triple H play the heel. And I'm sure on the night, there'll be some people like, we don't want to see you go, but they know he's being the asshole and trying to hold down the most beloved guy that they have right now.
Right.
Who can shit talk and be funny in the ring and give LA Knight a good classic match. And you think there's going to be people that are going to help him because Triple H could have some more underlings come from this or people that want to keep that authority going.
Right.
That can try and interfere and LA Knight ends up taking them all out. Whether that is an Austin Theory thrown in the mix that they get to be sided with Triple H, but then LA Knight's the guy to do it. And then for a change, you have a good guy retiring a bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing.
And people like, when the pin happens, everybody goes like, yay, but also thank you, Hunter. Like there's a little bit of both. Yeah. I like it.
You can do for 6 months, you can't make anybody's matches. You can't do this. You can't screw with anybody.
Right.
And it's going to be Adam Pearce that takes over or something like that. And then later he can take over the authority again. But he's no longer in the ring and you're not going to mess with anybody for 6 months.
Your boots.
Something.
That's when the boots are left. The suits are still there. All suits, no boots.
All suits, no boots.
So there you have it. We've fantasy booked a bit of his career. We've even retired the guy, but I do want to roll.
We'll give him an ending.
I want to roll.
Ending.
I want to roll back just a minute here because there's something that we didn't mention that I do think is now even sadder. But Bray Wyatt and Triple H never really happened. And if Triple H was still around when Bray came back, okay, we introduced the Fiend. We have this new version, like all of that stuff with Cena. He's picking on Vince, like at some point Triple H fits in this in a way that I think could have been outstanding. Because you have Cena as like the face, this like superhero character that they've built, right, in this machine. You have Vince as the evil puppet, right? Literally to the point where he's an evil puppet with horns. Triple H is such a huge part of this story that was just ignored because I don't think it could have gone anywhere. At some point when Triple H was champion last, I think it might have been when he beat Roman and did the Rumble or whatever it was, right? At some point,
was the last time.
At some point they had a moment, but it never led to a match. I remember Bray when he was still the, Follow the Buzzards Bray, the Cape Fear Bray. They had a moment.
For sure. I'm looking at Cage Match. There's 6 house show matches in 2017 with the Shield and Triple H.
Oh,
Bray Wyatt in the bar.
Interesting. So they had confrontations and matches, but never the one-on-one story, obviously.
Right.
I just think that is somewhere in this, especially like Fiend, because it was 2020 was when Fiend started, or late 2019 maybe. It was around the time that
there was still
he was wrapping up
Fiend.
Right. But wasn't the first Mania, wasn't the Funhouse match with
Pandemic?
That was Pandemic, right, of course. Okay.
Was John Cena.
Right. So it definitely started with crowd, of course, but it lasted through Pandemic when Triple H was like, I'm not fucking doing any of this. He was still, in theory, able to wrestle then. He hadn't retired. Right. But then right afterwards is
Bray Wyatt was set on fire.
Bray Wyatt was murdered. And that was unfortunately the thing that happened. Randy Orton ruined it for everybody.
Yeah. Burned down his house, burned down him.
But
what a dick.
At least we don't cheer him. At least we don't cheer
him. Seth Rollins
now.
doesn't do this. This song said burn it down. He's not even the guy that burns it down.
But I don't know.
Flaw.
Where do you think that lands? And do you think that works for everybody? Because I honestly think that they could have told a great story. And I think that they would have put on a fun program.
I don't know what you do with Bray and Triple H because I feel like the Fiend doesn't work with Triple H. That you save the Fiend for the people that you scare.
Right.
The others that.
So
it's the intimidating thing.
I guess
it doesn't.
I think about. I get what you're saying, but I think about what happened with that Hell in a Cell in Saudi with Seth, where they end the match because it's too brutal, and they didn't do anything for Seth. Sure as hell didn't do anything for the Fiend, right? If you were going to do something where there wasn't a definitive winner, where the match had to be stopped because something has gone too far or something happened, Triple H is that guy to do something so heinous to the Fiend that the match cannot continue, even if the Fiend is impervious to pain as they've made him be, not because the ref calls it because it's a disqualification or something like that, but because like that's it, match over. Mick Foley coming back and restarting the match with Taker at Hell in the Cell, like that part of the match where it's like this is something has occurred that this is no longer going to be a performance for everybody in the room. Like Triple H could have been that guy, way better than Seth Rollins.
I have trouble seeing that one.
Really? Interesting. Well,
maybe Triple H is the guy to.
Maybe Triple H was could have been Uncle Howdy this entire time.
Like, hey, we're gonna fight over some Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
And Triple H tries some, and he goes, "Oh."
Black. And that's why eventually LA Knight gets so upset because he's like, I could have been in that match.
I could have been that match, and then said, "We'll never talk about this again."
Yeah. Well, there you have it. It's fun to think about. What if Triple H did not have his cardiac event? We hope you had fun playing alternate timeline with us here. That'll do it for this week's program.
And in the chat as well. It's fun to have everybody
yeah.
thrown in, like potential opponents and what could have been and all that stuff.
Once again, if you're not joining us live, you're really missing out. It's the best form of the show. We tend to record every other Sunday, unless otherwise stated. All you have to do is
holiday break will be coming soon.
Sure, but we don't know what
from the lives.
Yes, but the best way to enjoy the show is live with us in the chat, and you can only do that by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/pwpalskis. I would love to see a spike in our participation over on the Patreon because it's the best part of the entire community. I love the Watch Along Wednesdays. They're so much fun. I love talking about.
I want to see a spike in the Patreon too.
Spike Dudley.
Yeah, they'd be fine. I think he's less fun now.
www.patreon.com/pwpalskis.
Spike Dudley
/Spike Dudley /Footy Pajamas. Tim Redbeard, aka Bloodfuzz, current PWP champ. If you would like to challenge him next year on the first episode in January of 2024, you got to become a championship tier Palski, and you can win that title. If you want to drop
Redbeard's ball,
ooh,
I
like what you did there.
And then give him a kiss for old Angzyme.
Once again, Patreon's the absolute best way to support the program. And if you're listening, I really hope that you will consider becoming a patron over on the Patreon. Scott, we have to thank our current Patreon Palskis.
Wow, what'd they ever do for us?
They gave us a couple dollars and kept the show going when it would have otherwise stopped.
Oh, fair enough. Well, this is the only wrestling podcast where you can get a retribution name and maximum male model name. So thank you to all of our current Patreon Palskis: AJ0314, aka Binary, aka Matrice69, Alex Pierce, aka Figs, aka Zetoys, Alice Raider, aka Invasion, aka Yves Joie, Andrea Beeler, aka Pollen Hate, aka Achu Detest, Curtis Mason, aka Hurtus, Gilbert Short, aka Goliathon, aka Batal Underus, Mass Llama, aka Spitz, aka Jakara Lover, Michael Beltran, aka Limestone, aka La Natural, Miguel Diaz, aka Bipod, aka Too Much Husk, Mike Lucas, aka Hackensack, aka Luger Testicle, Suicide, aka AKA, Tim Bemis, aka War Trek, aka Tussle Quest, Tim Redbeard, a.k.a. Bloodfuzz, a.k.a. Bloodefuse, a.k.a. the current PWP champ who makes me chirp him over my tongue with all that Bloodefuse. Tom Hader, a.k.a. Cupid, a.k.a. Cherub, and Tony Griggs, a.k.a. Big Griggs, a.k.a. Grand Grisois.
Thanks to each and every one of you for the continued support of the program. We could not, would not, should not do the show without you. We hope everybody's having a fantastic holiday season. And I do want to say at this point, you are cutting it close to get anything that you purchase from the shop. Let's see, what's today's date? Today is, never mind, it's already too late. You're not going to get it in time for Christmas. It was 2 days ago. You should have tuned in live, because if you tuned in live when we recorded this, you'd still have a week. So there you have it. December 10th, I think, is the deadline for orders to have stuff by Christmas. But hey, it doesn't matter. You don't need to buy Christmas. You're buying it for yourself anyway. Make a New Year's gift of it. Check out the shop, dragonwagonshop.com. Brand new Pro Wrestling Palskis hoodies. There's phone cases, some really fun designs there. We got a cool Macho Man design that's definitely not Macho Man. I apologize. It's Machismo Man and Mrs. Mrs. Elizabeth.
Mrs. Elizabeth.
Mrs. Elizabeth and Machismo Man.
This bitch is married.
They are featured on
on
one of the new designs for the for iPhones and Samsung cases. The really nice cases. Keep your shit safe in case you drop it. Like it's hot. What else is there? We got lots of shirts. We got hats. We got mugs. We got
phone cases.
We got hoodies and phone cases. All sorts of great stuff. Do that shit.
Yeah, hoodies. Hoodies is big. It's cold outside right now. I believe Alice Rader just got herself a hoodie.
Gotta love it. I think it was the wait, which one did she get? I think it was just the Palski one, maybe with the lightning bolt. There's so many great designs. I can't even keep up.
I know she talked about in the Discord of what she potentially was going to do for there's a work meeting.
Oh, right.
She thought about wearing the get fat and quit one and just going into work. I can imagine the feet going up on the desk, and the hands going behind the head, like,
yep.
And doing a Cody line, like, so what do you want to talk about?
I mean, it's a Roman shirt, so she'd be like, acknowledge me. And they'd be like, why? You're wearing a get fat and quit shirt.
You're here. What do you want?
Other ways you can support the show, of course, is by leaving us a rating and review in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Been a while.
Spotify, you said there's comments.
Yeah, you can get comments on Spotify. I forgot.
Can you read one?
I said I was going to look at that, but I didn't look it up.
Look at that.
It might.
I looked up Triple H's entire career in the span of this episode.
I mean, can you like fill time while I look it up since I completely forgot? Can you vamp this shit?
Sure can, because we got some comments rolling in here.
All right.
Curtis Mason saying, thank you guys for doing the show. Thank you for participating and listening to the show. That is much appreciated. Gilbert Short saying, yeah, I have a week to not afford to buy anything. And then a crying face. Hey, paydays come.
It happens.
Paydays go. It all work out. And, here we go. We're talking weather. Gilbert Short says, what's the temp in SoCal, Scott? Well, I'll tell you, currently right now, outside, traffic's pretty good on the 5. 405 a little backed up here. And the temperature right now is 70 degrees in Santa Ana. And it's going to be cooling down a little bit later on tonight.
I think this should be a regular part of the show. We should do news and weather.
News weather, time of the hour. We're going to be looking at the holiday season and what's okay to say. Sometimes you like to say happy holidays. Sometimes you like to say Merry Christmas. And other times you might just go with a happy Hanukkah.
You know what? I appreciate all that vamping, but it was all for naught. There's no, they call them Q&A replies. There are no new Q&A replies. But
are there any old ones?
No, that meaning like new would be stuff that we've never seen, which would be all of them because I didn't know this was. Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this was a thing.
He didn't know it.
Yeah. So essentially, the way Spotify works is it automatically puts on a Q&A for every episode, and it asks a question automatically. And the question by default is, what did you think about this episode? And I can change it. We can create polls. Maybe I'll start trying to do this for the Spotify listeners. If there are enough people who are listening on Spotify, let us know, and we'll start doing this. We'll start putting a question out for each episode.
Show them polls.
Where in other episodes we can comment on what people said last time. Obviously, Discord's a great place for that as well. But some people are afraid of the Discord. Like, I don't know how it works. Hey, you want to do it on Spotify? Do that too. There's plenty of ways that you can act with the show. In fact, that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to make this the single most interactive wrestling podcast there is. That's what makes us different and unique. We know you can listen to a billion other two fucking nerd dudes talk about wrestling. We appreciate that.
Yeah, and Conrad Thompson can do all his history and talk to someone that was in wrestling. But can you ask Conrad Thompson or whoever the major star is a question during the show? No.
Listen, I also just want to say that I'm looking for the first time ever at the Spotify stats, the individual for Spotify. I always look at stats for this program across all platforms, but just in Spotify. Oh my God, what a sausage fest is this? 94% of all listeners are male and 6% females. Hey, recommend the show.
Wow, 6% of the ladies have sausages? Good for it. Be who you want to be. That good for them.
And that's where we end it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in at PW Palskis for all your social media needs. I'm at Jake Lloyd Bacon. He's at Scott Narver. Hope you guys are enjoying your holiday season. Check out the shop, check out the Patreon, check out the socials, check out the reviews. Do all the shit that you know you're supposed to do as a proactive podcast listener. Thanks for joining us. It's always a blast hanging out with you, talking to you, the Pro Wrestling Palskis. Bye, everybody.
They plump when you cook them.
Hey, everyone. Jake Lloyd Bacon here.
Along with Paul Bianchi.
And Alexandra Hoy.
Hey, we all host different shows on Dragon Wagon Radio.
We do, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Not at all. We are here to talk about Dungeons and Dragon Wagon,
a narrative podcast series in which we venture into a mythical land for a D&D inspired role-playing game.
Alexandra and I are joined by Matt Hinksman and a very special guest of quest for each chapter of an epic saga in which we must take on the roles of half-orcs, dark elves, and more as we fight our way through a fantastical land of peril, drama, and often hilarity.
All of which is controlled by me, the Dungeon Master, and the players' chance rolls of the die.
And our show is for everyone. Even if you know nothing about D&D or role-playing games, we've got you covered.
That's right, our game sessions are highly edited, easy to follow, sound designed from top to bottom, and completely immersive.
Yeah, our episodes sound more like a well-produced radio drama than an RPG show.
So what are you waiting for? Join the adventure on Dungeons and Dragon Wagon at dndwpod.com or wherever you find great podcasts.
It's Dragon Wagon.